This is the Sunday Matinee, I Am The Wiz. This week, SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents the actors and voice actors into the entertainment industry, went on strike with the WGA with a list of demands. Both unions are looking to place limits on what the studios can do with AI in both the writing phase and in the acting phase. Though AI isn't sophisticated enough yet to write an Oscar-winning screenplay, it is good enough to possibly write some of the more derivative works out there at this point, which could spell trouble for a lot of writers that do that type of content. A lot of writers, before they really hit it big and maybe get a lot of award contention, they usually cut their teeth on the more entertainment-based stuff. So that could be a real issue with some writers in order to gain the foothold of getting better screenplay opportunities. Though this could definitely hurt the less talented of the writers, it could also mean that the more talented writers could also garner less money when it comes to their contracts in doing spec scripts and getting their screenplays sold on that one. Writers are also asking for quotas and minimums for writing rooms, where there is a minimum amount of writers that have to be there on any project. This is more for TV, really. It could be there for movies too, but most movies are usually written by 1, 2, or 3 people. In TV shows, there's a showrunner, and then there is a writer's room that usually is a few writers. They're asking for minimums when it comes to those shows. So I think one of the minimums I've heard is about 8 writers per show on that one. And then they want quotas as to what type of person can get hired on that point. Different people of ethnicities, colors, things like that. Along with that, the writers are also asking for significant raises in pay, residuals, and options. They want to increase their pay to match with inflation. And on top of that, residuals that will better represent how people are watching these shows. A lot of writers have their contracts right now where they'll gain residuals through syndication and through DVD sales. But as we all know at this point, the amount of people who are watching TV and the amount of people that are buying DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks are rapidly shrinking at this point. So that doesn't help them in their end. And then the streaming contracts are just not as lucrative for them. So that's why they're trying to adjust those types of numbers right there. As for the actors, AI is something they're also worried about, since studios have allegedly started scanning actors' likenesses in order to reportedly use them as the studios see fit. With bigger name actors, there are contracts in place where if the studio is going to do that, it's only for a specific project and that they have to have permission to use it. So in that end, for the bigger actors, this is not much of a concern, but there are reports going around that smaller actors are being asked to scan their likenesses in order to actually get a contract, which could be not great for their end when it comes to negotiating their terms. Actors are also asking for the option of self-taped auditions and an increase in pay, royalties, and residuals. Same thing with the TV actors. They are trying to get a better pay that matches with inflation, and on top of that, get their contracts revised so it's more along the lines of what have people actually watch their shows, which is on streaming. And self-tape auditions, I guess what that means is they're able to tape their own auditions and send it to a producer instead of going to a producer's room and auditioning there or something along those lines. I definitely get them wanting to raise their pay in regards to inflation, especially with minimums. I definitely get that, and I think that's a good idea on that end. And I get trying to get residuals for streaming as well. The problem is that streamers don't follow a third-party guideline like the Nielsen ratings or the box office to show how much money they make and how much views are taken when it comes to what Netflix or Amazon does. So there's no third party measuring this stuff, and there is no one forcing these companies to do so. So then you're really relying on these companies to be honest with the numbers of which they are presenting to people, which I will say to you right now, I don't think that's a great idea either. I know you have no other option with that one, but there is an easy way for Netflix and Amazon, all these companies, to cook the numbers to their advantage at that point. So until there is a third-party way of tracking views, I don't see how this is going to work for them. I mean, they might get what they want, but I think they're going to end up screwed anyway, which is the Hollywood way, unfortunately. They always have creative accounting when it comes to certain things. As for self-taping auditions, I doubt that's going to happen. Also, when it comes to the AIs, the scanning of actors, I think if that's true, that's pretty scummy, but I also think if you're going to get a contract with a studio, that might be what you have to do. I would fight that, and I think that's a good idea to try and limit that as much as possible. But I think that's going to be something that the studios are going to end up doing at some point. We've all seen some of the scenes from TV shows where the CGI is not great, and they had to do some really wonky things to fix a certain scene, and it would just make sense for the studio to have that kind of thing. But I would say in terms of the contract, if they allow it, to just keep it by whatever movie that they're doing. That would be my negotiation on that one. As for writers, writers deserve more pay. I agree with this to a certain extent. However, I don't think AI is going away. I think studios are going to use AI to the more derivative stuff, like the Hallmark Channel stuff, the TV movies, not Showtime, but Lifetime, those types of movies. So I think that's not going away. I will say pay has to get increased, and they should get residuals for what they're doing. I think the WGA is asking for too much in terms of quotas and minimums in writing rooms, asking for people for writing rooms. It sounds good in theory, but I can tell you from how many movies I've seen where there are multiple writers, or TV shows where there's more than 10 writers, how the quality dips and dips and dips. And if I were a director or a showrunner, I would not want that at all. So if this is just a tactic of trying to give them things to get rid of in order to negotiate better, then fine. But I don't see the studios going for that at all, and I think they would drop that as soon as they can on that one. The other problem that I have with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA doing this, and I understand that you have to do what you have to do and the contracts are going down at this point, but this is really the wrong time actually to do this right now. The streaming platforms have not been doing good in the past couple of years, and the new content has been dipping in quality. And this strike has given them great reasons to cut content. I just went over a few weeks ago how a lot of the original content that these companies are doing right now, they've decided to cut them and sell them off to other companies, or just take them off as tax write-offs. And I think if you keep giving them this kind of breathing room, they're going to keep doing it. And the more that you have them on strike, the more that they're going to say, oh, we're going to cut this contract, and I think they're going to be more of a hurt as the time goes on. I don't think the studios care right now whether these people are on strike or not. Right now, if you look at most of the streaming services, they have thousands upon thousands they have people to watch. And like I said, the new stuff has not been that great when it comes to what these streaming services have. On the one hand, yeah, I get that new content is what brings people back to these services. But on the other hand, there is so much content that all that Netflix and Amazon have to do is highlight older content that people have not watched, and that will seem new to them, and people will just gravitate towards that. I don't think the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA has a lot of leverage here at this point. I will say right now, and here's another thing too that to keep in mind as well, other countries are not striking. So England, India, Japan, Korea, countries that have vibrant entertainment industries, they're not striking. Netflix can just go to those countries, specifically Britain, and just get more from them at that point. I can see that happening pretty easily. I don't think there's going to be much pressure when it comes to the studios at all for this. I mean, I think they're going to be in a lot of hurt here. And if what I'm hearing from all these stories, and to be fair too, When it comes to strikes, it's all about narrative. So we could be hearing about all these famous actors saying, oh, I can only live for about 6 months in LA. We'll see about that. We'll see. I mean, when it comes to, let's say, the public's not going to care at this point. They're going to think that you're just being extra greedy, even though I do agree to a certain extent they should get more pay for what they're doing. On the other hand, saying like, oh, the public needs us for all this content, there's plenty of content. Like, if you guys aren't doing anything right now, and let's say for a whole year you're on strike and nothing happens, there's still plenty of content. There's still plenty of stuff that people haven't watched. They can just turn around and go, oh, I haven't tried this yet, and I've been meaning to, so why not? I mean, there's so much content. I don't think that these actors and writers understand that they're not in a strong position here. You're going to have to wait a long time for the studios to get extra nervous about this. Again, I'm not entirely sure what this is going to do here. And then SAG-AFTRA just announced that they're going to allow specific independent studios to be able to use their actors in order to do projects so they can get paid. My question with that is, that's cool and all you're doing that, but then what stops that studio from then selling that movie to the studios? You don't have that. So you're putting in all these different avenues where they can not do the strike or to circumvent the needs for the strike, but then you're just giving them other avenues and options for them to go elsewhere. Like I said, I understand the need to do this, but I don't think this is going to work out very well for the writers and the actors in this one. I think the end result will be the minimums will go up, the residuals will be adjusted for streaming, but I don't think it's going to mean more money because the streamers don't have a third-party way of measuring how they get their views. You're relying entirely on Netflix to say, oh yeah, you got 5 million views. What I think will happen is, oh yeah, you were number one, but the views sucked. So nothing we can do there. Honestly, I'm not sure where this is going to go, and I think this strike is going to last a while. Here's what I will say at this point, okay? I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 months they're still at it and the studios are still holding firm. I think, honestly, this could last 6 months. This could be a while. I really don't see the studios sweating so much on this. I could be wrong, and I'm not an expert in all this stuff, but just with the breadth of content that these studios have, you're now giving them the opportunity to go through their library and say, okay, this is not performing, this is not performing, this is not performing, cut, tax write-off, we'll sell this here. And at that point, you're just giving them the options to get rid of you at that point. So I don't know. I want to be more optimistic, but I think this is going to not end the way that SAG-AFTRA and the WGA wants. But what do you guys think? How do you think the strike is going to go for the writers and the actors in this one? And this is it for this episode of I Am The Wiz. Tuesday, Zero and I will review The Blues Brothers, starring Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, directed by John Landis. And Thursday, I will review a movie, which I will tell you about on Tuesday. And until then, I am The Wiz, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.